cities, just to, do a team's meeting, mayors and city councils, let them know what I know, and then let them air any grievances. Check out better shape because I fight it over. I represent Parkland, and
Right, okay. Sure, I got you.
yeah, I would never get bent out of shape if you have the folks in Garland to talk to them.
Oh, no, not at all. It should be an argument.
Testing.
Well, that's what we're doing, to make sure that you're in compliance and do what, you have an expectation, and, bi-weekly, that's what we do. Hopefully you and your family. Brandon. Oh yeah, I've already talked to him. He said you're not worried about us based on the reports he gets every day. He said, in due time, he said there are other people who are not as proactive as Dallas County was. He said, in due time, he said just ease up, don't worry about it, keep doing what we're doing. Yeah, so that works. All right. Our audio difficulties are over.
We can hear you, Judge.
Okay, great. The court will come to order. There's a quorum present. All of our members are present, and all legal notices are posted, and the court is duly called. Is there a motion to close the January term?
So moved. Second.
All right. Is there a motion to open the February term?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Bailiff will please open court.
All rise. The Dallas County Commissioners Court is now in session for the February 2021 term. The Honorable Clay Lewis Jenkins presiding. Please remain standing for the invocation.
All right, and our invocation today will be given by a guest of Commissioner Koch.
Thank you, Judge. Today we have Father Matthew Crownover. He's the Interim Director of Mission and Outreach for the Church of the Incarnation in District 2. Father Matthew Crownover provides pastoral leadership over the liturgy, music, and volunteers for the Uptown Contemporary services at the Church of the Incarnation. He is a husband to a very, very talented artist, Juliana, father to 2 boys and 2 girls, a Benedictine oblate, and an ultra-marathon runner who believes that the Desert Fathers were right about the spiritual wisdom to be found in the wilderness. He was ordained to the Sacred Order of Priests on May 1st, 2019, and it's a pleasure to have him here. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. It's good to be with you. My job as Director of Outreach has taken me all over Dallas County over the last year, interacting with different partners, and I've been able to see the good work of our leadership, and I'm grateful for it. For my invocation, I wanted to call your attention to an image of a stained glass window. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. It's been a while since we've been in church. So I wanted to take you in to an architectural point for a minute and close with a word of prayer. So just invite you to relax for a second. When we're physically in church, we're oriented in space. We don't have eyes in the back of our heads. So we look forward. And in most churches, there's the altar, a cross. There's that sort of orienting symbol. Around us, there are stories from Scripture, usually illustrated in stained glass. The stained glass reminds us that God's light shines through broken pieces, through our broken. Keep in mind the way they made stained glass was they took broken little bits and put them together, and that work is redemptive. And I think a lot of us are feeling that way these days. Look at this particular window. The top window is called a roundel. There's 7 of these, one for each day of creation. This is hard to see here, but this is the day that Adam and Eve are created. And it's important to note what's happening here is that the rib is taken from the side of Eve, that the woman is neither below or above, that God's purpose is that we work together. You look down, going to the left, you see St. Benedict. Benedict is the guy who gave us an ordered life. He observed we have 24 hours in a day, all of us, 8 for sleep, 8 for work, and 8 for holy leisure, where we read books, we walk with neighbors, we try to play the guitar, and that's really what defines us. So he is the guy who gives us order and structure. Looking down below him is Julian of Norwich, who is a mystic. She's sort of the disorganized prayer that reminds us that God's love is a wondrous adventure. She's holding 2 things in her hand. If you see, she's holding a crucifix, which reminds us that our work in Christ is always going to be involving some suffering and will be hard. And in her hand, her other hand, she's holding a hazelnut, which is a funny little thing, but that's her series of books she wrote about all of the universe being contained in the simple and the small. Something as simple as a nut. So our simple emails, our simple jobs can always contain the divine. Looking up to Dante, that guy in the upper right-hand corner, he's the guy who reminds us that there are levels that we work through. He's the guy who wrote, the books about all these medieval quests towards spirituality. Now, the one I want to really call your attention to is the lower right-hand corner. Anybody know who that is? This is classical stained glass, and I think this is cool for what you guys are doing today. This is the Queen of England. Now, traditional stained glass will always include a secular, civic kind of government figure, always. And we chose at Church of the Incarnation to put the Queen in there because at the time we thought the Queen of England might be less controversial than a sitting 74-year-old president that we had at the time. It might be less controversial to put that in stained glass, but classically speaking, you'll always have a secular government kind of official in stained glass. And that's to remind us that all of us are entrusted to use our gifts and our decisions to make the world a better place for all of its people, And that is a beautiful thing to remember so next time you look at stained glass, look for yourself in there, not just because you're entrusted with this sacred trust of caring for our community through laws and order, but through these other ways too, of the way you spend your time and the way you engage with creation. I'll close with a brief prayer. Loving God, we give you thanks for the opportunity to meet today. We give you thanks for the endurance and the perseverance, for all that is good and beautiful and true. We give you thanks as the source of all those things. We pray that our community might be galvanized and unified through the work that you call us to share as we seek to be sources of healing and hope and prosperity for the people that call Dallas home. In all of our prayers, both those spoken aloud and those that remain private, nestled in the depths of our heart, we offer them to you, grateful for your presence today, confident in your goodness. In Christ's name, amen.
Thank you, Father. I have the only resolution this morning. The first resolution listed is for the clerks. to process our Employees of the Year resolutions from the January 4th special session. The next resolution listed is for Natalie Jenkins Sorrell, and that resolution reads as follows. Dallas County takes special notice when local residents volunteer to serve on boards and commissions to assist with the notable work required to help the county government. And whereas Natalie Jenkins Sorrell was appointed to the Parkland Board of Managers on September 29, 2015. At the time of her unanimous appointment, Natalie was considered a rising star in our community who brings a fresh perspective and an in-depth knowledge of finance. At that time, her 20 years of finance experience ranged from mergers and acquisitions to investment banking in both the healthcare and finance sectors. This experience made for an easy transition to her Parkland board service, and whereas in nearly 6 years of service, she has chaired the Budget and Finance Committee, which is responsible for the approval of contracts, developed an annual budget, and the investments of Parkland funds. During her tenure, she has also served as a member of the Audit, Facilities, Talent Development, and Executive Committees. Natalie's preparation for meetings and insight into the unique financial systems of the hospital made her a welcome addition and highly respected member of the board. And whereas Natalie's service to the Parkland Board of Managers ends as her career continues to thrive as the investment officer for the $3 billion Employee Retirement Fund of the City of Dallas, she will continue to serve local residents in a meaningful way. The extra time not being held for Parkland committee meetings will certainly be quickly filled with her favorite people, her husband Michael and their 2 children. Now therefore, be it resolved that the Dallas County Commissioner's Court salutes Natalie Sorrell for her dedicated service to the Parkland Board of Managers from September 29, 2015 through January 31, 2021, and offers best wishes for her endeavors. And I so move.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you all. Way to go, Natalie. Now it's time for our presentations, and the first presentation is from Dallas County Health and Human Services, Dr. Wong.
Morning.
Good morning.
Let's see, let me get the slides. Okay, I'll start out again with some updates regarding some of the data. We do remain, whoops. Working. We do remain at the highest risk level, the red zone, stay home, stay safe, with respect to transmission. This is the data on available ICU beds. Some of that has relaxed somewhat. We currently have now 55 available ICU beds in Dallas County. And this is, we will see some leveling off, plateauing of some of the indicators that we've been seeing increase over the last several weeks, which are good news, but certainly not an indication that we can relax our efforts. This is the number of emergency department visits in the prior 24 hours. Again, you can see some even slight declines and leveling off and plateauing in most recent weeks. And then the admissions in the prior 24 hours, again, we're starting to actually see some declines in that, but you'll note they're still at some of the extremely high near record levels. Same with hospital occupancy. Again, promising signs of declines, but still extremely high levels that we're seeing. So not an indication for us to relax, but it is nice that we've actually gotten below 1,000 hospital occupancy for Dallas County. And then this is the deaths. We've had some record numbers of new reports in the last couple weeks, and these are a trailing indicator, and some of those latest numbers may still fill in as we get delayed reports. And those are sort of the lagging indicator still from some of the record other numbers of new cases and hospitalizations that we'd seen prior to this. In terms of vaccine allocation, I've updated it regarding the most recent 2 weeks for Dallas County. What is a good trend, as you can see, coming from week 1 through week 8, we had pretty progressive increases in the amounts of vaccine, certainly in the last couple weeks, coming to Dallas County. Total allocation for Dallas County, and that's counting this current week, which we still just started yesterday, but 251,675 doses that have been allocated to all of Dallas County.
Well, Dr. Long stopped there on the vaccine allocation. Why did you not include the PCCI race ethnicity distribution of that vaccine?
Well, so the distribution, we're still, in terms of actual, that data is limited. We don't have the...
Whoa, back up. That data is what?
Limited, because we're still trying to...
Wait, back up. It's what?
Limited, because we don't have good data on race, ethnicity.
But it's not limited to the fact that PCCI has published it in a way that talks about the registrant, talks about the vaccine by race and distribution.
Well, and I'll show these slides. I think that right now the best indicators we have are by zip code, because again, we've been dependent on the data coming back from the state through the state MTRAC system, and it has very very limited race ethnicity data. We're in the process of implementing our new reporting system for our own system now.
I know about aluminum. We got that, but the majority of this, we talked about this. This information basically tracks what a majority of this court was trying to do.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
With regards to the vulnerability index, and we did not follow through. So this kind of flies in the face of that when you begin to vet it through. And so when we look at the amount of vaccine distribution, when we look at it by race, in terms of white, Hispanic, Asian, black, of course the unknown and other, but at the end of the ladder, other than the unknown and other, and I guess those are aliens, but are blacks, African Americans? I know this Black History Month, and I get around it.
And I provided the latest information we had to you all last week. I didn't want to present it now because it's very incomplete, but we're trying to improve it, and I wanted to show the data that we currently have that is actually more representative. But I did provide you what we had as of last week. But let me, if I can show you sort of how it, as the other sort of distribution that we have good data is by zip code, because still, the state system in terms of what's actually been administered is still at least 3 to 5 days behind. I know there thousands of vaccines behind in what we've administered, and then the database actually does not have good race ethnicity.
But is that data that, as I saw it and tracked it, it does not in fact impact the zip codes that, again, a majority of this court had talked about in terms of vulnerability.
Sure, and let me show you, I'll show you 2 charts, and I think, I'm not sure, I added them this morning. I'm not sure if they came out in your printed copy, but I did get some slides right before the meeting this morning that I tried to add, and I can get those to you afterwards if you didn't get that. But I did want to start out just showing the numbers of allocation for Dallas County, and again, it's been increasing. And then just briefly, these are sort of an update a little bit on how we are. And again, noting the estimated number, I didn't update the number of total vaccinations allocated on these slides, but again, it's close to, let's see, 251,600. So But noting that in the different categories for Tier 1A, you know, in the 44,000s, 38,000s for some of these groups. And as we get into Tier 2, you know, again, 72,000. As you add all these up, there are still quite a few people that fit in these categories. And as we move into 1B, again, just for adults 65 plus, we're talking about over 330,000 estimate population and 113,000 that are just 75 plus. And then as you add in the 16 to 64 with underlying health conditions, another 400,000. So again, comparing that to the 250,000.
And of the 113,000, 75 plus, again, African Americans at the bottom rung of that ladder. That was again, the majority of this court's concern when somebody on the fly decided we were going to do 75 versus 65, which was Tier B.
Well, and that was just based on that the data for the greatest impact on hospitalizations and mortality initially is for persons 75 and older, and that's where we have tried to expand that now to 65 and older with underlying health conditions.
I guess so, but you're still, you know, you do everything except in the 75, 113,000, what percentage of those were African American?
We can give you that demographic breakdown, but there are certainly more than we have vaccine. I mean, I would say that it's not like we've been able to provide enough vaccine to totally cover these population groups. But that is, we have expanded down to 65 plus with underlying health conditions also.
Well, that's what we should have been at first. I know y'all out there tinkering and tweeting. My problem still is the most vulnerable communities, the 10 or the 11 zip codes that the majority of this court try to direct you to, which they're doing in Tarrant County, which they're doing in McLennan County, which we still don't appear to be able to do in Dallas County, is still the most severely underrepresented in this in the distribution package.
And again, let me show you some of the updated numbers because we have been exactly trying to reach these populations. I think one of the things that the actions that you took in the emergency meeting last week are helping, and exactly we want to be able to, the bottom line, the number, and again, if you'll bear with me, I have some data on the persons who have registered out of, now it's over 500, I think the latest update is now it's over 511,000 or something like that.
But registered is not the same as getting the vaccine.
Sure.
I think I sent all of my colleagues,
sure.
I sent it to you yesterday, it's still a cluster. You know,
right. Okay.
It's still a cluster in terms of being able to get a good communication. Whether
Sure.
people show up at K. Bailey or Fair Park and get calls from the city versus the county, it's still a cluster. I understand the court did an emergency illuminate. We're waiting for them to come in. All I'm continuing to say is there's plenty of frustration, and when you look at the numbers, unless you got something different in the slide this morning.
Let me show you some updated numbers that show some of the geographic distribution. Again, you know, we have been doing the pre-registration and the registration. We have over 482,000, and now it's at 500, almost 520,000, I think, this morning. And we are expanding then through the telephone call center that you all approved to try to give access to persons who don't have the internet, and doing actually community outreach in the community to sign people up. Again, trying to get, what we need to do is increase the denominator. So this is for all registrants. So now this is an updated distribution of the registrants now. This is more updated than you saw before and shows the geographic distribution. This is based on data through, I think, yesterday. Well, it's when we had 393,000 registrants, and again, it keeps changing by tens of thousands every day. And there have been, since even the emergency meeting, you know, efforts in the community. What we've said is we need to increase this denominator, this pool of persons who are registered, and that's what exactly we want to do. And I think that you're starting to see more of that distribution in the pool. So it's still have gaps to go.
Those 10 zip codes represent probably about 15
15,000. You know, you just,
No, it's more than 15. If you add the numbers, there's the actual, it's, 16, 24, 32, 40. These are, those 10 zip codes
Okay.
are actually a significant number if you add that up.
Can you send us the presentation, Dr. Huang? It's not on the agenda.
Okay, oh, that's one of the ones I just added this morning. I apologize. It was hot off the press.
no, we didn't get any of them.
Yeah.
Pardon? Oh, okay.
We didn't get
it.
we-
And I can see that the colors are changing, Dr. Huang. It's just hard for us and for the public, I'm sure, to see, you know, all the different numbers. I know I can barely see them, so if you can send it to us.
Yes, I apologize. Again, this was hot off the press this morning. I got it this morning and added it to the slides from last night. And so this is the ones that are now in the pool for all registrants for the now 511,000. And again, it keeps growing every day, and we hope to continue to increase the numbers in some of our targeted zip codes through these community outreach efforts and through the other phone centers. Then this is the ones where this is the pool that we've sent out invitations to for appointments from the registrant pool based on the prioritization. And so again, you can see the distribution from that pool. This is who's actually receiving the invitations for appointments. Now, the latest, this latest number is the latest vaccination counts where the people who've actually received vaccine, and this is what's delayed probably 5 days, and the numbers are still behind, but this is now the actual numbers and distribution of people who have received vaccine in Dallas County. So we are starting to fill in some of the areas that we've been trying to, and again, it's a slow process. I mean, it's only been, it's been like.
Dr. Wong, can you make it bigger for us? It's really, really hard to see on a computer.
Okay. I'm sorry, you want paper, did you say, or?
It doesn't make it larger because we still can't,
Is it possible? It may not be possible. Yes, that's great. Thank you very much.
That better? Okay.
We will get a copy of this, right?
Yes, I'll send it to you. I can send it to you right afterwards, and I know we've got it here now. So this is the latest of what's actually been distributed, but it's still tens of thousands behind, I think. We know that the state system is behind in getting all the data. Again, we are still in the process of paper entering, although this morning we are actually, for the first time, we're sending out the QR codes for invitations for tomorrow, and we will hopefully, starting tomorrow's, be paperless and not have to be entering all this data by hand, so that we should get more timely data on who's actually received the vaccine, certainly through Fair Park and through our Dallas County Health and Human Services. That's some of the other providers may still be behind us, but at least for us, we'll be able to have more real-time visibility on who's and the demographics. We actually will be collecting more of the other demographics.
But we're going to request this information.
Sure.
I'm not saying you keep 2 sets of books, but I mean, how hard is it? For people who are giving vaccination, it ain't like we're talking about. I'm not asking you about Ellis Davis. I'm not asking you about Eastfield. I'm out there. We're asking you about you primarily at Fair Park.
Yeah,
Okay,
and that's why we said, we needed that system, because, we had to stand up Fair Park in 4 days. It was like Wednesday night, we chose the site, we implemented it for
You've been saying
Monday.
4 days for 3 or 4 weeks now. All I'm saying to you is, some of us are going, if not all of us, are going to ask,
Yeah.
what.
If I could, please don't take this as anything negative towards any of our partners, because I think everybody's working very hard. But as you can see, from what's been in the paper about the city of Dallas over the last couple of days, a whole lot of people who didn't have appointments sent to them from the city of Dallas, they estimate 40% of the people who showed up there were people who used a forwarded link. We have seen that the people that use forwarded links, and I don't want to be too racial about this, but they're overwhelmingly white, and they're overwhelmingly from certain zip codes.
That ain't nothing new.
Okay, and so the QR code system that we will implement partially today, completely within 24 hours, stops that. Because the person that is invited from the zip codes we prioritize, for instance, is named Mabel Smith. And if Betty Johnson shows up with Mabel's QR code, she's not even going to be able to get registered. If you forward it and you're not Mabel Smith, you can't get in there. And if you show up with a QR code and you're not Mabel Smith, there's no way to fake your way in and pretend like you thought you had an appointment.
Judge,
So
my
that is
problem,
going
Judge,
to
Judge,
wrap out most of it right there.
Judge, I spent 8 hours at Ellis Davis. I spent 3 or 4 hours at Eastfield. Look, they're not I'm watching their system. I'm walking from one end, from the time people queue in. So why are they not having this issue?
Largely because they're using my chart, which already has those features in it, and they're primarily doing, to a greater extent, Parkland patients who already tend to be the most diverse patient population group in the Metroplex. Now, if they were using the same non-QR code system, and they are for about, I can't remember exactly how many they're doing this week, but they're seeing the same problem we're seeing when they pull from the list, because right now, I'm not really giving any information in this public meeting that the people that are hacking the system don't already know. It's very easy to forward the link to your friends right now. And that is going to change later today and completely by tomorrow.
But Judge, let me just tell you, you talk about that. We had one official in the South who presented to a city council and presented the My Chart information. Presented, hold on, what was not supposed to, that's internal operation, presented the chart. But guess what? By the time I got the calls the next morning and I was out there, they were able to augment that and turn those individuals away. Say, hey, you did not come into my chart this way. My problem is they have a vetting system. They have a process. They seem to be on top of it.
Yeah, yes, they are on top of it. Because I'm talking to everybody, I'm aware of ways that people have breached everybody's system, including Parkland's My Chart. I mean, people are very vigilant in trying to get a shot. Unfortunately, our system, and I've likened it to this, and I don't mean this in a disparaging way, because of the way government purchasing works, we had to take an existing contract that we have with someone who was very good at the thing that they did. But we asked them to get out of their comfort zone and try to do something that they didn't know how to do. And they did their best, but you had a glitch there that you could drive a truck through. And that's no reflection on them being good people and trying hard. And I think they're fine people. But, now we're going to a system that is a pretty proven system. I mean, this is the same system. If you were to buy tickets to an event, you'd get a code. And you couldn't just Xerox that 5 or 6 times and get all your friends into the event as well. Same concept here. And so to the extent somebody posts this on Nextdoor or sends it to their friend, theoretically, and it's been tried in other jurisdictions because everybody's trying to cheat, it doesn't work that way. And so that's going to fix a lot of our problem. That's okay. I'll give you an example. Mr. Price, you called me a few weeks ago, and you said, it looks like to me that, or I sent it was in Commissioner's Court 2 weeks ago, actually. You said I sent somebody out to look, and it's an overwhelmingly white crowd there today. And I said I'm surprised by that because the way that we sampled zip codes and did things, it should have been like 90% people of color. So then I went out the next day and sat there for an hour and looked. And sure enough, it was probably over 50% Anglo crowd. On one of those days, it was what we're trying to do was catch up, to what the oversampling in the first week. Able to figure out something was wrong, ask people their zip codes, same dang zip codes that we keep oversampling. Then Health and Human Services went in and found 1,500 appointments for the next day. that people had signed up that never got an invitation. So
Does Luminar offer additional security as far as
Yes.
of collecting, of registering and moving a person's registration onto the assignment, the appointment process?
Right, yes. I mean, that's what it'll be, single assigned to one person, that QR code and records follows them throughout for first dose, second dose, only their record. And so that's what we'll be able to verify that it's those individuals.
And that should be online by the end of the
They
week?
sent out this morning invitations for tomorrow's appointments through the QR code system. So tomorrow we are hoping to move, so this is less than a week when you approve that contract. We are tomorrow we're hoping all our appointments tomorrow will be using that QR code system, and that we will actually be paperless, that we will no longer have to enter all of this data by hand into the InTrack system. We will get more timely, immediate ability to look at the data. And I want to thank you all for the support for this data and the infrastructure, because this is even before COVID. We were asking for the conversion to Epic electronic health record to be on the system with Parkland, so we can use my chart. That is exactly what we're doing. I'm actually we'll have some more requests for support for continuing this infrastructure, this data infrastructure that we've been doing with case investigation, lab ingestion, getting all this data, so we're not having to deal with paper faxes and all these things, and not having to manually enter it. This shows what the problems historically with the investment in this data infrastructure. And so again, I greatly appreciate your support for this, but recognize this is exactly what we're trying to address, so that we don't have to deal with these in the same manner when we come up with these sort of situations in the future. But we will be, we're working with Melissa and her team, but exactly, we don't like that they're so far. But, again, this one, there was a big pivot in the whole strategy that the state said, we're not going to be doing these 750 providers. We want you to now stand up these hubs to do mass scale. And again, credit to all the people who worked extremely hard to put this in 4 days, stood up Fair Park, got a system for getting the appointments. We refined, and still some problems, but now just a couple weeks into it, getting this new system that we're continuing to address these issues, and again, appreciate your support.
But I find it, and you continue to say this, and the judge said this, everybody's if you'll show me either black or brown folks that are hijacking the system, I want to see it. We don't hijack the system. Hell, we stand around and wait to try to get into the system. We understand we got barriers that are built in. And then we said something to you about having call system. I said yesterday on a call, the only thing the state of Texas used to have going for it is that Mississippi, anyway. That Mississippi was behind Texas in terms of education. But the only thing county had going for it is the city of Dallas, was a cluster. And when you got call centers with 2 or 3 people, that stuff is not working, but nobody seems to be saying anything.
Well, again, we appreciate the support to get a commercial call center, because, that's what we've got, hundreds of thousands of people signing up for this. Our standard call centers are not equipped to be able to deal with those numbers, and so we recognize we needed, and it has to go through a procurement process to get these on board and to get a system that will handle hundreds of thousands of calls. And so again, we appreciate that support to try to make that happen.
Okay, just following what my colleagues have been asking. So Luminaire is going to help us with the management, with the QR, and by our next meeting, we'll be able to see better numbers, right? And more, I'm going to say it, diverse mix of people being vaccinated. Mm-hmm. Now, take me to the call center. When is the call center already going to be completely working? Because registration is an issue with the African American and the Latino community. Mm-hmm. So tell me where the call center is and where the message, the educational message is at.
I know they are working on it as we speak. I think later this week, I'm not sure the exact exact timeline, but they are working to get,
Thursday.
what's that?
February 4th,
I'm
Thursday.
sorry?
Thursday.
They should have already the message. How is it going to be distributed? How is it going to be, distributed among the different communities?
So I know the contractor is working on hiring Spanish language operators. They're getting all the call scripts and the procedures for responding to these and building the capacity to answer the large number of calls.
Okay, so they're going to distribute it to different media outlets, African American community, Asian, obviously the communities of color that are not registering.
Sure.
So we have a call at 5 today on this with different media groups. And I ask, and I'm pretty sure Univision and Telemundo are going to do this, and I'm asking others to do it as well, is when that number goes live to leave it on the bottom of their screen along with their QR code. We're doing a campaign where, and you've already seen Channel 8 do this if anybody watches the Channel 8 news. At the bottom of the news for the newscast is a QR code. And you take a picture, you hold your phone up to that, and it opens WFAA's link. So it's a great thing for WFAA because they get traffic. But then that takes you to all of the sites where you can register in Dallas with a click of a button. You then click on Allen Fire Department on your phone, and there you are at the registration page. We're asking everybody to do that. And then the Spanish speaking stations may do some other things too. And of course, we need all the commissioners and everybody to get the word out. We're not getting that phone number out just yet because it's not live yet, but it is an 855 number that will replace the 469 number. The 469 number will port over if you call it, like if somebody thinks it's 469 next week, they call it, they will get the call center. But that's the hope. And then also I forgot who it is now. It's the Chamber of Commerce and some other group that put together money is going to help market that phone number as well outside of us.
Judge, I will appreciate that, Dr. Juan, Judge Jenkins, that as this moves forward, we get an email. I mean, I'm sure I can speak for all my colleagues here, telling us because we've been asked, we're briefing other cities and our own, districts. So I want to be sure that all of us have the information necessary coming from, Dallas County Health and Human Services Department on where we are and where are we going. And the timelines, Judge, the dates, and that we are going to be able to be using this, the education, the management, and of course, the call center.
Of course. And all of those things that I just told you, we'll definitely do that. But all of those things were presented to me by media partners and the Dallas Chamber, who I asked to go out and figure out how they might help us after 6 last night. So today was the first opportunity I had to share that.
Well, I appreciate, all of that, but, I still don't know in terms of certain communities, who's involved. I don't ever hear you talk about people on this so-called chat line that I think brings a different perspective to the, it's kind of like in Congress. Everybody who's on a salary and got benefits talking about poor people. I mean, who's in the room that speaks with regards to these communities? Again, I'm going to continue to remind this, that a majority of this court took a step forward to talk about the vulnerable population. Who's on these calls? Who's on the calls that makes that representation? I don't think any of my colleagues on the call. I'm damn sure not on the call. So who's on the call? I appreciate the chamber. If they want to shed some light, that's fine. That still doesn't mean that they know how to penetrate these communities. So who's on the
So
call?
I asked people to help us, and people call and they tell how they're going to help us. So sometimes it's Jaime Resendez telling how he's going to help us. Sometimes it's a television station or the Chamber of Commerce. It just depends on who calls as to who's on the call.
But then the point still
Last
is.
night, call was from the chamber and one of our station managers who has to then see with corporate if he can do what he wants to do. But I get calls from people wanting to help all the time.
That's very much appreciated, and it's definitely a partnership among a lot of different entities.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is the proof's in the pudding. And
Sure.
even though vaccination is just, golly, it doesn't seem possible that it's just over a month since we got the first vaccines. But we had been doing testing, recognizing too the differences of healthcare access, of transportation, of communication barriers. And were we at that point already trying to target the people who really needed to be tested so we could do a better job? Because this is not, as you say, we've been working at parts of this a while. So the message to me, the community education, because I'm still getting a lot of people who say, I'm not going to get tested. I just don't trust it yet. I want to see, my neighbor, I want to see how they react, if, what's going to happen to them. So that community education part is still incredibly important. One of the other things I'm getting too is we do spend time on, because communication is using the words that people understand. Therefore, if we've got a 55% Hispanic population in Dallas County, we must be sensitive to language barriers. But they're not the only group in the Dallas area. I know a lot of my district, it's Asian. So are we then moving into that level of communication?
Right, no, absolutely. We're getting to the other languages also, and
Because I have seen it in the past where all of the information on the HHS webpage was available in Spanish and Vietnamese in addition to English. Is that's still?
that's where we're moving. Again, it's trying to, right now it's been such limited vaccine and rolling up, but you're absolutely right, trying to get those messages out and address vaccine hesitancy now, and then reach the other populations.
Because bottom line, we're still not being successful in that particular piece.
Sure.
The community education, in order to convince, maybe too strong of a word, but to help people understand the public health efforts that are being made and the risks that we're looking at. So I can definitely appreciate what Commissioner.
Well, let me
Price
show
has
the
done.
other rest of the slides because it has a little more updated information.
Let's move on and see what else.
Yeah. So. Okay, that's the one in Dallas County. The Fair Park site, again, it's been just 3 weeks since we stood it up. January 11th was for the first day. We've had allocations counting through the rest of this week for Fair Park of 36,000. So we 27,000 as of last week. We've already, as of today, so just one day into this week, have administered 31,095 first doses and another 1,785 second doses. One other thing is this is evolving. As I said, we're changing the whole appointment systems, the electronics, the going paperless. We've also added in a drive-through piece for persons that have mobility issues on a smaller scale to divert them, and our intention next week is to offer a larger scale drive-through for the second doses of people who receive their first dose at Fair Park, as those numbers are going to start to increase. And we are trying to move then to a full scale where drive-through is the primary means of receiving the vaccine at Fair Park, so that will, we think, address a lot of the other mobility issues, the other efficiency issues that we've been talking about. And again, this is, so it continues to be a work in progress, and improvements, being made daily. And it's only 3 weeks into it, so please bear with us. But the good news is,
do we have enough boots on the ground? What's the scalability? I mean, maybe my colleagues know. I don't know. What you keep talking about adding, what's the scalability?
With the scalability for what we're talking about with the drive-through and with the Luminaire, we're talking about being able to do at least 1,000 persons per hour, which Denton today is doing the largest mass vaccination clinic in the country. They're looking at 10,000 in a day. We feel we can do the same thing if we get the vaccine. Right now, we've got 9,000 doses per week, but we feel we have the scalability with Luminaire and going to a drive-through that we could do 10,000, 12,000 a day if we are given that vaccine. That's what we're prepared to do.
What are the chances of us getting the vaccine?
What's that?
What are the chances of us getting the vaccine?
Well, again, it's the limitations. They're not going to give all of it just to Dallas County, and I know there's
scalability does not have everything to do. Scalability. Where are you getting your personnel?
We've been, it's been using our staff, using the city of Dallas. It's using other surrounding cities.
How many? See, that's what I'm asking you. I'm asking for a profile of Fair Park. Because let me just tell you something. I know what I call, the reason we went to a call center is because this court recognized you can't do it, as I said, in the kitchen. Same way with the city of Dallas. The reason it was jammed all the time, and I sent you guys that email, is because, it's just, they have no clue. So how many individuals do you have dedicated? What are they doing? We need that kind of profile, because we know you're, again, I'm back to scalability.
Again, we had to stand this up in 4 days, and we got it so that, the good thing is we've had over 31,000 persons, largely 65 and older, who have received vaccines, so no matter how you cut it, they are.
And over 60% of them were Anglo.
But
over
absolutely,
60% of them were Anglo.
That was an early, I'm going to give you a little update, just at least from the zip code in a second. But I think from scalability, we recognize that
let me just ask you one thing. Yes. Are we going to continue to kind of pitter-pat along out at Fair Park and, have a competition between who's the worst, the city or the county? Or are we going to turnkey that operation with Luminaire in the queue?
We are looking at turnkey for the longer term, exactly, because, again, we stood this up very quickly. We recognize that, keeping this going for the months on end that this might take will require, and so we are, as we speak, talking about alternatives of how we can get additional support for turnkey type of things that would be coming for discussion.
We need to know that information because, again, Doctor, we're out of the loop except what we hear in the community or in the media. And so it makes us like, we don't have a clue. And so we begin to ask, we need to know that information.
Sure.
And so it doesn't make it look like,
And again, it keeps changing every day, in terms of understanding exactly where the state strategy is going to go. There are still 750 plus providers that have signed up, that how much they're going to, when there's availability of vaccine, how much that's going to go through those channels as opposed to the large hubs and how that shifts. And again, a lot of it is dependent on how much vaccine is available. But there is this other, there are other partners that have been in place from the start to help delivering vaccine. And so that's where, again, I think there was just a couple weeks ago, the state made a strategic decision to shift to these large hub, mass vaccination sites as a more efficient way to quickly get large numbers of vaccine out to the masses. I think as more vaccine becomes available, we would love for it to be like the seasonal flu vaccine, and people can go to their neighborhood grocery store or whatever to get their vaccine without the huge lines and without the big panics and things. But that would take larger availability. So in the meantime, we're, I think as the strategies and as the situation changes, because again, bottom line, it's limited availability. And that's why so many of the things that we're doing are why we're having to do it the way that it's being done. But we certainly share your interest.
I have another concern that it has come out, and I understand completely that the more vaccine and the more places that can provide it will definitely make a difference. But one of my questions is, you mentioned that with Luminaire, we will be able to do 1,000 people per hour.
That's what?
So by Thursday, that is when supposedly all the system is going to be installed, will we be able, based on all the personnel that we currently have, which you're going to send us, because Commissioner Price wants to see how many people do we have, when will Fair Park will be able to give 1,000 people per hour?
Probably after next week when we stand up the drive-through, that we would have that capacity. But again, for this week, we only have 9,000 doses allocated. As my understanding, probably next week is going to be 9,000 for the whole week. But we will be prepared, and we've asked the state, give us as much as you can, because we will have then the infrastructure in place to do what we think is 1,000 per hour once we get to that fully functional drive-through situation, which we're planning on standing up next week.
You're going to be able to do that or scale it?
What's that?
You're going to be able to do it or scale it?
At that scale.
Turnkey.
Huh?
I'm asking about turnkey. I'm sorry.
Well, turnkey
So
would be...
on that, Commissioner, the Emergency Management Director, Doug Bass, is working, I believe, with purchasing and this purchasing for the city of Dallas. I hadn't been fully briefed on that, but I told him to move forward, as we all agree. It'd be great to have a turnkey operation in doing a RFP or RFT or whatever is required to get us a turnkey operator and bring that before the court. And then also, well, I probably shouldn't talk about federal stuff today. I can talk to you one-on-one about that. So yes, we're working on that.
Second question, Dr. Huang. Are you done, Judge?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Second question, Dr. Huang. We have been, my office have had several cases of seniors with mobility issues that cannot stay in a car for a long period of time. I would like to have a plan on how we can select those individuals, those patients, and get them in a drive-through expedient way rather than to Fair Park, because as you know, that is an issue. And those are the 1A, 1B categories. So I would like to see something to address patients with mobility issues, particularly seniors. Because for them, even if you have the go-kart, if they cannot get into the go-kart, if they cannot stay there for 2 or 3 hours, those seniors are already telling me, we're not going to Fair Park. I'm not going to get into a little car. I would like a drive-through location.
And we have started, as I mentioned, we have started some drive-through option for those that have mobility issues that can't get on the golf carts. So that is already in place, but it's, on a smaller scale. So that's why we're trying to scale up next week for the larger scale drive-through piece of this, in particular, initially to address the second doses, but exactly for that issue of the mobility issue. And so we have had that now in place for several days.
Okay, and Luminaire will take care of that as well.
Right.
Okay, in our questionnaire, for registration with Dallas County, we also need to be sure that we address that.
Yeah, we've actually added that question.
Okay.
So we've added question both, do you have access to a motor vehicle for a drive-through? And then there was one other question we asked.
I just review. We need to be, in the registration that we've been doing, that is one of the questions that we emphasize.
Right. No, that's actually something we added in, and we're hoping even when we have the full-scale drive-through to still have an option for people then who come by DART or whatever.
Well, I don't know where the left hand, oh, go ahead.
And my last question, Doctor, we do have a senior program in Dallas County. A lot of our seniors that used to go into our facilities. I know that Mr. Edwards continued to do some of the meal distribution, but what are we doing for them, to get vaccinated, and have we approached them?
Yeah, we've been working, I know Mr. Edwards is also working with Marissa Gonzalez on a plan for that. We early on, even that first week, we tried to do some outreach to that senior program. Again, there were some challenges apparently with that specific outreach, but we are wanting to partner with them. There are, as this evolves, again, the pharmacies have been a partner with doing the long-term care facilities. They've also expressed interest in being able to go out to certain places and offer vaccination similar to how they've been doing at the long-term care facilities. So we want to make some of those linkages.
My concern, Dr. Huang, and I know that Commissioner Price had mentioned this in the past, is we haven't seen any of that data. And we still have calls from retirement communities. I know your staff is working with some of them, but we're still getting those calls of, hey, this retirement center or this community center have not been contacted by anyone. And I know this is out of your purview, but if you can get us in the presentation any kind of this data, it will be phenomenal, because I honestly, when I get these emails and calls, I usually, as you know, send them to you. But I would like to see something that will give me a more concise way of saying this is where we are and this is what I know and this is the information Dallas County Health and Human Services.
And there has been discussion at the state level for them to try to work a program for homebound seniors, try to get access to vaccination. That was at the state. They were discussing and trying to find out what
do not have internet, do not have computers, and do not have transportation.
Sure.
So it puts them in a category that really I cannot access because of COVID. I cannot send staff because of COVID, but they need our help and they are dying for having more information.
Well, and since you don't know, the left hand does not know what the right hand is doing, and while I'm angrier than hell at Parkland for a number of things, Fair Park is shifting the drive-through over to Ellis Davis. Ellis Davis is caring for a number. I've been out there every day, and a number of they are servicing people from Fair Park. And when she asked about those drive-throughs, that's what those individuals. I'm watching paratransit vans come through. I'm making these observations, just like I told the judge first 2 days at Fair Park. I'm watching this. So Parkland is servicing some Fair Park constituents with that drive-through. So that is occurring. I know a lot of times out there, like I said, left hand.
And we're trying to work very closely with Parkland on all this, but we do also have our own drive-through at Fair Park even as we speak for some mobility challenge. Just this slide was something, again, a new one that I just got this morning. Or no, I think this isn't. This was the latest data as of when we still had 17,000 persons registered in the IMTRAC system. So it's more than the last one you saw, but as I mentioned, we've already administered 31,000. But when at the point where we had 17,000, this is now the zip code distribution for those who actually received vaccination at Fair Park from the state IMTRAC system. So recognizing there's another 14,000 that aren't in the system yet, but at 17,000, this is the distribution. So that is certainly some of the areas that we were targeting and hoping that Fair Park serves, and that's has been the goal. And fortunately, at that point, at the 17,000 mark, we're seeing more representation in that chart. Then just wanted, the last thing, one question that has been coming up and want to make sure we reinforce this, the second dose. We've been talking to the state regularly. They assure us that everyone who received an allocation, whether it's a pharmacy or whatever, who received an allocation for the first dose will get their second dose. Now, the pharmacies need to request it from the state, but they are guaranteed to get that second dose. So people should go to where they receive their first dose for that second dose, because the way the allocation system, we only have a certain number allocated to us for second doses based on how many first doses we gave. So, if you received your first vaccine dose at either our headquarters of on Stemmons, DCHHS, or at Fair Park, you don't need to re-register or schedule an appointment to get the second dose. You should have received the card that had the date when you needed to get your second dose. We want you to come back to Fair Park on that date, around the time when you received your first dose. And unless you hear otherwise, just come at this, around the same time, and you will get your second dose. But we are not prepared to do second doses for people who received their first dose at another place, just because our allocations, we don't have, the allocation for those second doses from those places, people who received it otherwise, and they may have received another product. They may have received the Pfizer product, and again, we don't have the allocation.
Exactly, and you can't mix the product.
Right.
And see again.
we
need to be able to tell the public that, because you get people showing up at Ellis Davis, and Ellis Davis now is strictly on Pfizer, and if you want to do Moderna, you got to go to Eastfield, even on your second dose, if you got Moderna the first time.
Exactly.
But again, we're having to walk down the cart to explain that to people at the queuing. That's what's happened. They say I got my first dose. Well, at one time, Ellis Davis had Moderna. They now got all Pfizer. And like as Ms. Hill said, we're either going to do Pfizer or we're going to do Moderna. And it makes it, just from an operational standpoint, it makes it easier. So explain that to the public.
Right. No, and that's why we're telling people, when you get your card, you should say where you go back to the same place, and it should have the date. Go back, for us, go back around the same time of day. You don't need to make another appointment. We are trying to make some other contacts back to people with the Luminaire, but that'll be an added on, so don't expect that, and just come back for your second dose.
And also for members of the public that may be watching this, we have been reassured repeatedly, and it's been put in writing by DSHS, that your pharmacy will get an allotment for your second dose. So if you find yourself in a very strange situation, for instance, you had your first shot in California and now you've moved to Texas, or the pharmacy has literally gone out of business or burned down, and it's not a chain, because if it's a chain, they'll get you somewhere else, then you can contact us and we'll figure out your unique situation. But if you've just heard from Dougherty's in particular, or somebody affiliated with Dougherty's, that they're not going to have your second shot, the state has assured us that, in fact, they will have a second shot for you.
Commissioner Cobb?
Oh, yeah, Dr. Wong, I just wanted to get some more data on some of those logistics, because kind of going back to where we are and the end state, right? We can admit, to varying degrees, there's been some failures there. We met the low bar regarding getting shots into arms, and that was the most critical thing, because that's really the major metric that we've been held accountable for by the federal and the state level. So, certainly, I'm very glad of that, right, and appreciate that. We have structural weaknesses within pieces of our infrastructure, right? So we kind of duct taped a system together to reach out to people that wasn't necessarily meant for it. So we learned lessons about scaling. And so we're rectifying the issues, scaling the call center, and then, now we're scaling regarding the weakened infrastructure by going to Luminaire. Here is one of the places that I'm getting a little nervous, right? The 1,000 an hour is absolutely doable by using Luminaire. In fact, you can go multiples of that. You could do $1 million an hour on the software, but you've got to have the infrastructure behind it to actually make that work. So some of the metrics that I really want to hear about in order to make that work, because that 1,000 shots an hour is roughly 17 a minute, right? So we're gonna have drive-through, we're gonna have, inside. I want to get an idea of what our average time to shot is regarding each of those methods. So, am I 15 minutes in the car line? Am I 20 minutes from dart, golf cart to in the pavilion? Am I 12 minutes from parking to pavilion for ambulatory folks, and 20 for non-ambulatory folks that get out of a car, park, and go, and if they're still walking into the pavilion? Having those time to shot, how much time in shot, that's going to be, of course, a narrow band. It's just everyone's in shot, but drive and pavilion, right? Those two differences. And then the getting out, right?
Yes.
Because that's going to be part of it too. I mean, even though you have people coming in and people coming out, there's still log jams that happen there. So that 1,000, and that's one thing that I'm nervous about, because we make that mistake all the time in IT. And Commissioner Daniel, of course, we see it all the time when dealing with the IT governance, is that the software is not the process. Sometimes 2 or 3 pieces pop out of the software, and really the process is housed largely in the software. In this instance, a lot of our problems that we've been focusing on will be solved by the software, but the vast majority of the process is outside the software and is just enabled by it, right?
Called implementation.
Yes.
Right,
So-
and yeah, no, absolutely, we're looking to get some of that, thus far, one of our biggest bottlenecks is getting people into this, Fair Park, parked, and then get to our center. Once they're in the building, we've had they actually could process through in about 50 minutes, but we've had, the really long waits of people getting into the parking lot, getting checked in. That's where, we've tried to identify what the bottlenecks are. We're looking with a QR code, we can then and with the issues of people coming in without appointments, that verification has taken a big bottleneck.
Yeah.
With the QR code, we hope, we can get that so that people can get into the system much more quickly. Then there's either the 15 or 30-minute wait at the end that everyone has to do after getting the vaccination. Once the process is paperless and we're using Luminaire, the actual vaccination time, and so the model that we've looked in that they've implemented in Nueces County is coming in almost cohorts, like if you have 3 lanes, then 3 lanes and 3 cars at a time, so 9 cars at once. Everyone descends on those 9 cars. There's a person on the driver's side, a person on the passenger side. They get their shot. It takes 3 minutes for the process of, just giving the shot and saying it was in the left arm, and here's who gave it, and the lot number, and that's entered. Then that 9 goes out. So you've got 9 at a time, go every 3 minutes, and if you replicate that multiple times, that's how you get that throughput to get to the 1,000 persons per hour. And so those are absolutely some of the logistics that we're looking on, and also then how.
I want to know those metrics, though, so we can continue to kind of hold ourselves accountable to somewhat the micro pieces. I mean, it still does play, it really does give us the macro picture as well. But then also things like, I know we're using, Chief Bass is going to scale up by using outside vendors. Good thing, bad thing, right? I mean, you have someone, you have a quote unquote perfect choke if things go wrong, but you may not be intimately aware of all the pieces that are going on. So things like, if we're having these drive-through lanes, how do we deal with a car breakdown? That's gonna, little things like that. Hopefully we have operators that have dealt with these type of drive-through lines and potentially, long periods waiting in those lines and those type of things before. So just a little bit more color on that so we can make sure that, we're seeing ahead of the curve and trying to hold things accountable. Because I think, we're all in the place right now. We've seen these early failures. We're doing it in a low vaccine environment, so it's okay that we tweak our system and build it up now. But certainly we're going to be held to a much higher standard a month from now when we should be receiving much more vaccines. So that, the kinks need to be worked out real quickly here in February. So as much of the data as that you can get to us regarding these logistical pieces and really, so these average time numbers, but then how we're scaling. Where does our team end and where does the scaling begin? Because I think those decisions, certainly are within the purview of this court regarding what we're paying for, the contract or the scaling up portion of it. But also, we need to know about that intelligently, and perhaps if we need, long-term temporary within departments to hold, a large, private entity responsible and be able to interact and use them more effectively, we need to know that as well, to see around those curves. So that's kind of where my greatest concern comes is right now, and certainly where we have a great bit of uncertainty. The software can get us there. We have other pieces that can absolutely get us to high numbers, but just like, our efforts early on where the software was holding us back, potentially, the human abilities and how we structured things could be the thing that's holding us back in the next phase of how we're doing this. So if you can keep us apprised of all those things, we're going to get a lot more comfort, but also be able to help if we see something that may be going in the wrong direction.
And we're working closely with Melissa Kraft and her team on some of those.
And purchasing as well, right? Because they've
Right.
done a little bit of logistics. So.
What else is in your slideshow?
That's it. That was it.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
That's all.
And hopefully you can send us the presentation, Dr. Huang, as well as some of the details of the operation that we
Is the
asked.
public allowed to ask questions?
Oh, all right.
Thank you very much. We
Next
really
on our
appreciate
agenda is our consent agenda. Dr. Garcia, did you want to pull anything?
Not today, even when we do need a more diversity, I'm going to let it go today.
All right. So is there a motion on our consent agenda?
So moved.
Second,
All right. Any unreadiness? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
aye.
All right. Next is our awards. The award has been pulled by the department, so no action will be taken. We'll now consider court orders M1 through 24 and M25 through 26. I have not received any requests for separate votes or pulls on this. Is there a motion on court orders M1 through M26?
Yeah, Judge, I'm going to want to talk about 10, which is your appointment. Sorry, I left my dadgum badge, and so I really want to talk about it. It's your appointment, but I definitely want to talk about it. And with regards to, that's the Parkland Hospital Board of Managers.
Move
So
to.
you want to talk about that after we move in second? These orders, you want to pull that for separate?
Can we move for discussion?
Yeah, well, you can move for discussion.
All right. So Dr. Daniel has moved for discussion. Is there a second?
Second,
All right.
Judge,
And
before you
now we'll
vote-
have discussion. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Darrell.
Before you vote, also, I have one correction in the miscellaneous brief. Elections under item A. There's a not to exceed amount on that of 491,000. It should be 10,000. Okay, so that's just a
Just a
small math error.
Well, just a small correction. Yeah, I saw that, and I talked to, or I had my office reach out to Mr. Scarpello. Really great job on Mr. Frosch's part there.
Yes.
So what we had is we had those we had carts that are used to do curbside voting, and we thought those were paid for by a basic CARES fund or a grant, but because of the timing of when the order came in, they weren't going to be. We then found, and the carts were pretty expensive, they're like $1,300 a pop. And we then found we didn't actually need those because there was a better cost-effective way to do it that Mr. Scarpello found. And so Mr. Frosch was able to negotiate the penalty that they were charging us for canceling the order all the way down to $10,000. So actually, the number that they put in there is what he saved us, not what it cost. So great job, guys. So on with the discussion about M1 through 26.
Well, you got a motion, a second for purpose of discussion.
Yes, and
Okay,
now
so
discussions. Go ahead.
So 10, and Judge, while I understand it is the purview of each commissioner and the judge to appoint whomever they desire, who's been vetted with regards to background to any of our boards, and especially the Crown Board is the Parkland Board of Managers. It's interesting today listening to Father Crownover talking about the stained glass and the Queen of England. I just on this so-called Groundhog's Day, this so-called this President's Day, it is Black History Month, and I'm still having difficulty with Parkland. Your appointee today was part of the corporate integrity agreement, the SIA, that I went and pulled and have reread in this report, this third annual report. You know, and I'm sure, she will perform well. But what I find interesting in this Black History Month, we're still talking about culture and diversity, inclusion, culture and diversity. You know, during this Black History Month, maybe it's a different kind of groundhog. You know, maybe they're the ones that had the monkey cup. You know, Dallas County has engaged a service by a guy named Phil Claybrook called Metrics to Results. And I don't know if all of my colleagues have had the opportunity to do it. It's called Turning Unconscious Bias into Conscious Thought. And, the travesty is that Dr. King, who we just celebrated, said nothing in all the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscious stupidity. And we continue to give lip service and head nods without knowledge and commitment, and that's dangerous. And so, while, like I said, I'm sure this employee is a decent person, you know, even with the invasion of the White House, people are still talking about individuals who may or may not have participated, but they were on the grounds, and as a result, there are consequences. You know, there are consequences, as Dr. King was saying, in this so-called sincere ignorance. And Judge, I'm going to say, like I said, during the apartheid of South Africa and the Union of South Africa, as this country continued to spend money to support that regime, we got Parkland, inclusion and diversity, and in 2020, not 2015 when the SIA, the corporate agreement, was signed, which, like I said, they had nothing in here. It's called Challenge the State of Employee Engagement and Health and all of this, and I've reread it. I guess Commissioner Cox, somebody wasn't on the court at that time, but I've reread it. And there's nothing about inclusion and diversity. And we're still talking about monkey mugs in 2020, not 2015 when it's SIA. So hopefully, your appointment, who is replacing, an African American, hopefully they're sensitive enough to talk about and bring to the board and to that organization inclusion and diversity. 13,000, 12,000 employees, 6,000 nurses, a number of them African Americans, of course, very few in the C-suite. And, and the travesty that hurts my heart is that, I've got an African American woman, and in profession versus performance, it doesn't mean anything. I got an African American woman who's making a decision and talking about a teachable moment. And so while she was part of the Obama thing, which, I think they dealt with the monkey thing during the Obama administration, here we are in 2020 still talking about monkey mugs. And it's a teachable moment. So hopefully your appointee, since she did not address it in the SIA, will do it with regards to Parkland and her admission to this board. So with that, I'm just telling you, on your appointment, I know the Bible says, let the yea be yea and let the nay be nay. I'm going to abstain on her, and I will hopefully get an opportunity to come back and say that she did something more than just showed up.
Yeah, since it's been brought up, I want to tell you a little bit about Marjorie Petty, who is, when he's talking about the Obama thing, Marjorie Petty was a high-ranking official in the Obama administration. Marjorie Petty was the top person for the president in Texas and several other states on Health and Human Services. She reported directly to the Secretary of Health and Human Services, who reported through the Chief of Staff to the President. So in that way, she would be, depending on how you want to call it, the third person or the second person from the President on matters dealing with Texas. Both the SIA, including the SIA, which for the members of the public, people who got here afterwards, that is the Systems Improvement Agreement, or the probation that Parkland was placed on for patient jeopardy issues earlier or last decade, around 2011 or 10, I forget which. And she also oversaw the DSRIP funding, the issues on Medicaid, all forms of CMS issues. I got to know Miss Petty quite well and found her to be an extraordinary person. And I'm very pleased that she decided to retire here to Dallas and that she's willing to do this. But as I do with all my appointees, and particularly with ones to important jobs such as Parkland, but actually I do this with all of them, I actually checked not just my own recollection of a person I've come to know and respect very well, but I checked with people at the highest levels of CMS on the career professional side. I checked with former CMS leaders for the Obama administration. I checked with high-ranking who happened to be Black, people at Health and Human Services who worked both over and below on the chain of command, Ms. Petty, and everyone had glowing reviews. And one person told me, it's not always true that when the boss, a career professional told me, it's not always true that when the boss leaves, no one can think of anything to say negative about them. But, and then he said, in fact, it's unheard of. But that would be true with Marge Petty. So I'm very pleased that Marge Petty has agreed to serve on our Parkland board. She brings unique knowledge of DSRIP and other types of funding and financial matters that people who have not worked, with HHS and CMS in their camp just simply would not have that view, that view into the window into the administration. Also, I'll remind you that many of the people at CMS and HHS on the second level there in DC that are in the Biden administration are folks who were in similar positions in the Obama administration. Andy Slavitt, who's a friend of mine, comes to mind. So it's going to be really good to have her there. I'm really pleased that she said yes.
Yeah, well, and as I said, no aspersions on her personally, and I'll see what she does as opposed to what you say she's capable of doing. Inclusion and diversity is still a phantom at Parkland Health and Hospital System. And again, until such time, cultural diversity and even the outside party vendor has basically said that Parkland has an issue, and so they've hired somebody who said that, and the monkey mug is just the latest of the process that has floated to the top, and it's not a teachable moment.
Any other comments on M1 through 26 in this or any other order?
I had a quick question on number 25. I was a little confused about the total cost of the hardware being ordered.
Yeah. Can somebody get an answer on the hardware? And also, I'm seeing something, Daryl and Boris, on the participant. I'm not sure the public, are you sure this meeting's open to the public? I just looked, and if I'm correct on what I'm seeing on my screen, there's only like 5 callers. There were a total of 9 participants in the meeting right now. Have we knocked the public out?
They're just bored and tired of the same old.
That's just the web link. They're also available on this.
Okay, great, go ahead.
Ms. Kraft, with regards to vaccination, hardware.
The answer to the first question, sorry.
Oh, no, I thought that's what she was answering.
Oh, okay.
Oh. Good morning, Judge and Commissioners. Did you have a question regarding the?
Well, number 25, the way that it's written, I was a little unsure about what the total cost was. Is the total cost $50,249,000?
Yes, Commissioner. And then there's going to be that recurring 20, I think it's like 20-something K for the yearly amount. So that's going to be data coverage for a year.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, Commissioner Price.
No, that's, I was just following up with you, for her. Yeah, no, for her. Okay. Call the question, Judge.
All right. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
I abstain on court order number 10.
All right. So that those and the clerk will note that. So 1 through 26, absent 10 passes unanimously. 10 passes 4-0 with 1 abstention. We've already talked about the correction on miscellaneous. We will now hear from our registered speakers. Will the bailiff please read our rules of decorum for our public speakers?
So we're not going to executive.
All Commissioner Court attendees are hereby advised that this meeting is conducted in accordance with the provisions of the Dallas County Code, Section 74-71. Visitors and registered speakers are to preserve order and decorum at all times. Personal, profane, or slanderous remarks are not appropriate and will not be allowed at any time during this public meeting. Any and all applause is to be kept brief in observance of time constraints. Disruptors, visitors, and or registered speakers may be removed and are subject to the penalties provided in the State of Texas Penal Code, Sections 38.13, 42.01, and 42.05. Registered individual speakers are limited to a maximum of 3 minutes, and the maximum discussion on any one topic is limited to 30 minutes.
Thank you. Good job. Our first speaker today is Ms. Dolores Phillips. And Daryl, again, since I can't see whether they're here or not, you let me know if they're not here. Ms. Dolores Phillips. Ms. Dolores Phillips. Daryl, can you see her on your screen? She's normally
We're going to try and
here.
call her. We have to call Mike Petroccarelli also. So I'd go to the next one, Judge, until we get them on the line.
Okay. Our next speaker is Sandra Crenshaw. Miss Sandra Crenshaw. Miss Sandra Crenshaw. Now, I know those two are always here, so I'm worried we might be bumping out the public. Our next speaker is Mr. Pablo Rico. Mr. Pablo Rico. Mr. Pablo Rico. By the way, if you're here and you're having a hard time getting on, we're going to come back to you, so don't stress. We're figuring this out. Our next speaker is Mr. Thomas Pena. Mr. Thomas Pena. Mr. Thomas Pena. Our next speaker, Mr. Rico Dukes. Mr. Rico Dukes. Mr. Rico Dukes. Okay, next speaker is Robert Ciccarelli, who we do have to call. Daryl Boris, or somebody's on that one, right? Mr. Martin?
Yes, sir, we're calling them right now.
Super. Okay, our next speaker is Miss Tony Jones. Miss Tony Jones. Miss Tony Jones. And again, I do have a concern because I've never seen this on my screen before, that perhaps we don't have these people in a place where they can address us or hear us. If there's a member of the public, oh, good. And if there's a member of the public, like press or something, that has a cell phone, text me and tell me you can actually hear us. Mr. Ciccarelli, please state your name and address and give us your thoughts. Robert?
Mr. Ciccarelli?
Hello?
There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
We can hear you now. Go ahead.
Are you ready?
Sure.
Okay, Mr. Jenkins, let me tell you something, please. What was that noise?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's a county.
Okay, so, I want to tell you, there's a lot of chaos with this COVID-19 right now. I'm 65. I don't have any transportation. So when I went online, you're only doing for people transportation. I got a phone number from Dr. Daniel's office. I called the number 214-828-6717. They said they don't know what I'm talking about. Then she went to her supervisor and came back to me and said, oh, we just found out about this. And it's chaos all over the place right now, sir. I cannot wait in the line because I got a 2 hip replacement. And the guy he's Harrington, he's got scoliosis, a pacemaker, high blood pressure, and diabetes. He can't do it either. There is no transportation. The number you gave me is complete. They're scrambling. What the hell's going on, sir? You have not planned this in advance about people that don't have transportation. Thousands of people that need this vaccine are going to die because you didn't plan this in advance. I'm just letting you know, sir. I'm at 615 Woodlawn. I need to get the shot. Keith Arrington needs to get the shot, and somebody else. Can you please bring somebody over so we can get the shot? Because I cannot wait in line. I got a 2 hip replacement. We have no transportation. I have no car. Okay? But this is complete chaos, what's going on with DART. And they don't know what the hell's going on. I mean, they're scrambling, and they just found out themselves. When I told them, that's the first time they knew about it. I got your number through Dr. Daniel's office. So whatever you're talking about, as far as everyone getting shots there, you got a lot of work to do because I'm waiting. I need to get it. Okay, I'm 65. I got high blood pressure. I got a heart problem. But I don't want to die. But right now, there's no transport. It can't get anywhere. So please, this is a big mess. And talk about the Mexicans and the blacks. That's why they're not getting the shot. Because it's unplanned for less fortunate people that need the help. They don't have cars, and they're going to die because of it. I repeat, please bring over 615 Woodlawn. Please get over here so we get some shots before we die. Okay, that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we find any other public speakers? Are we satisfied? I did get a text from several Dallas County employees that they can hear. So why don't I go through the names of the public speakers again? It's unusual that none of them would be here.
Well, they didn't expect us to be here until next year. That's all.
The clerk does give sign-on registration information when they call to sign up, and they're supposed to link onto this WebEx. So it's their responsibility to call in to this system that they haven't, other than the one that you would do, that we called. So we can go through the list again, and we're going to try Dolores again. We tried her once, and she hung up.
I'll go through it one more time, and then we'll adjourn for our closed session. Dolores Phillips, Sandra Crenshaw. Yes, ma'am.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
This is Dolores. Address 567 West Dickey Road, Apartment A. You did receive handouts. 5 of them were from the Dallas Observer. Author of the articles, Jim Schultz, I would like to say thank you for bringing attention and awareness to how people who speak of corruption and cover-ups as whistleblowers, government and non-government, retaliated against by entities of the government. I would like to humbly say this is as big and bigger than Robert Groden. Robert Groden spoke that Dallas battled him for 20 years. It's documented in the court of law. DC 0612501, Robert Groden prevailed. 310 CV 1280, Robert Groden prevailed against the city of Dallas, Dallas County, and Dallas County Museum and DPD. DC 1401521, Robert Groden prevailed. At the same time, Robert Groden was in the court of law alleging that he was being conspired on by the city of Dallas, so was I. I was in the court of law, DC 1406905B. That court was the Honorable Craig Smith Court. He rendered orders for pretrial hearing and for mediation. Someone for the city of Dallas intercepted those orders. I did a notice of removal, which was 314 CV 2864. I want the public to know that they have a right to know just how dangerous Dallas is when you speak of injustices. That case was remanded by Honorable Tolliver. When Honorable Tolliver remanded that case back to Honorable Craig Smith's court, mind you, someone had intercepted the orders for the mediation and the pretrial hearing. Honorable Hasday, Lisa Hasday, she then filed a second notice of removal back to the district court, which was 314 CV 3131. Meantime, I'm getting battled by the city of Dallas and DPD like Robert Groden. The only difference is Robert Groden, as a non-minority male, was heard in the court of law physically, and everything that I was asking in the court, like Mr. Groden, I was being denied. I want to humbly share something with you. I'm not at all surprised to find in Mr. Robert Groden's case. I just found it on last year. But every time I looked online for Dallas Retaliates or trying to find anything about the city of Dallas or DPD Retaliates, my laptop would always redirect me.
She's out of time.
You're out of time, Dolores. There you go. Thank you for being with us today. Our next speaker is Miss Sandra Crenshaw. Miss Sandra Crenshaw. Next is Mr. Pablo Rico. Next is Thomas Pena. Next is Rico Dukes. And finally is Tony Jones. So this concludes our public speakers. We will now take a adjourn for our closed session to consider chapters under Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code as previously posted. Any action as a result of the closed session will take place in a subsequent open session, and we'll begin our closed session in approximately 5 minutes. Thank you.
part of public employment is that you're more likely to get situations where you're sued like that. And the chilling effect would be is if you're constantly putting the burden of defense on the individual who seeks office.
Ready to close it, Commissioner Press?
Judge, we're ready.
Judge, you gonna do it? Or I'll do it.
Doing it. Okay, I got it. No action necessary as per the closed session. The court stands adjourned. Thank you all.